And we're live. Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to a very special collaboration review on Wonder Woman. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host Tate in the Hour, and our guest for today, it's Itzmoe, looking absolutely amazing in your Wonder Woman cosplay. This is actually your second appearance on the channel. You joined us for our Beauty and the Beast review. Oh God, when was that? Was it in March, I think it was? So thank you for jumping on with us today. We know how much of a Wonder Woman fan you are, so it's great to have you on the discussion today.
Thank you for having me.
That's no problem at all. This is actually, not only is it a collaboration review, but today we're going to have two videos on Wonder Woman. This is going to be a completely spoiler-free discussion, so you don't have to worry about us giving anything away about the movie. Try as we might, although we really want to. Later tonight, me and Tate will be jumping on another live stream along with George for an in-depth spoiler discussion. So yeah, we're going to be completely Wonder Womaned out by the end of today, but that's completely fine. So we're going to kick off, I think, with just sort of your guys' history on the character, what you knew about Wonder Woman before going into this, and based on trailers and stuff, what was going through your head when you were preparing to watch this film? What did you make of it?
You can go first if you want to.
I never know. I never know the order.
There's no order to these things. We just kind of go for it.
Well, I grew up. When I was younger, I grew up mostly knowing more about Batman. That's the one I just knew the most about because of the cartoons, like the animated series and the Tim Burton movies and things like that. And then I started learning a little bit more about Wonder Woman in like the Justice League cartoons or the comics, things like that. I thought she was the best out of all the female superheroes. I just loved, what she was about, fighting for justice. I loved, she was independent. I mean, she's still like, fell in love with people and stuff like that. But some people, like crazy people, think that like if you love someone, then you're not strong or independent, which is stupid. And yeah, I just think she's amazing. And when I saw the trailers, I think when I saw like the comic, I have like reactions to all of them on my channel. When I saw the Comic-Con one, I was super excited. I was like, yeah, But then when I saw the full length, like I think like the first actual trailer, I cried. I couldn't stop crying. Like when I was talking about it, I could not stop crying because it was just like, this should have happened a long time ago, a Wonder Woman film. She definitely deserved one. And I just couldn't believe like it's actually happening and it looks amazing. And yeah, and I was just happy, for a lot of the young girls that are, now going to get to see this awesome superhero on screen. Because I was just thinking as a kid how much I would have loved that. That would have been amazing. So I was just happy for little girls. And Patty Jenkins actually, somebody tweeted that reaction to her, and she retweeted it, and she said, nothing better than getting a reaction like that. So she saw me cry. And yeah, I was just super excited. It was historical, I think, for me. It was super important, this movie, just because I think she's like the best female superhero. She's finally getting her own movie because it's like she's part of the Trinity, okay? Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. They've all had their movies. They're great. She is just as great, and she's finally getting her own movie. And I thought, like, okay, if the DCEU can only get one film right, please let it be Wonder Woman, because if it's bad, oh my gosh, it's gonna be horrible just for Gal. It would be bad for her. It would be bad for Patty, and just maybe female directors in general. People are not gonna want to, producers are not gonna want to hire them or anything like that. But I'm so glad the opposite happened. That seems to be that's gonna be doing great with fans, critics, and just financially too. So
Absolutely. Tate, how about you?
Okay, so Wonder Woman for me, I had barely any introductions other than the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons, which I watched a few of when I was a kid. I thought that she was the best part of Batman vs Superman. I know that you didn't really hear my opinions on the channel because I was away in Austria at the time, but I personally think that she was the best thing about that film. More than Batman, like, I really do think that she was just film, if that film could be said to have highlights. I too did not like it. As far as the DCEU is concerned, DCEU, sorry, Extended Universe, I liked Man of Steel. I feel like I'm the only person on the podcast who did like Man of Steel.
No, George liked it too.
I liked it. I liked it.
Okay. Well, Chris, you're the only person in the podcast who didn't like Man of Steel.
And this is what all the DC
like
hate is put onto me. That's why.
Funnily enough, we had a dislike on this review before it even went up. When we were just kind of waiting for the stream to start, we already had one dislike, which is amazing. Brilliant. But no, I didn't like Batman versus Superman. No, I have not seen the extended cut. No, I don't want to see the extended cut. If you want a film to be good, then release the best version of that film firsthand. Like, why? Yeah, I can't be asked to go into that. I wasn't too pleased with Suicide Squad. I thought there were some elements which were good and some glaring elements which were very bad. So I was apprehensive, and yet at the same time, I thought this film looks pretty cool when watching the trailers. So I was kind of, I wouldn't say hyped for it, but I was going in with zero expectations. I thought, look, if we can, you've made some mistakes in the past. Can you get one film right before you do Justice League? Please. Because let's look at Marvel, as it's the easiest comparison to make. They set up their own universe by having a series of films before teaming up all the heroes together. They have had, how many films? Is it 3, 4? Before having the massive team up, whilst Marvel had a whole series spread out across a larger span of time. So if they got this film right, then maybe it would have the grounding to set up the next film and introduce the rest of the DCEU. So yeah, going into this film, I was not too well known on the whole history of Wonder Woman, but I was excited enough to just kind of go in with an open mind.
I'm similar to you, Tate, in this regard, in that I pretty much knew nothing about Wonder Woman. Usually with a lot of, like, obviously Superman and Batman, they were always my go-to superheroes. I knew a lot about them, but Wonder Woman I really didn't know much about. I knew that she was the daughter of Zeus. She was made out of clay. I think they change up her origin a lot with the comic books. I think that was something that was introduced in the New 52, and they've like cherry-picked with this film with certain bits of her origin. I knew that she had an invisible jet, that she had a lasso of truth, and that she had a sweet 70s series with Linda Carter, and that was pretty much all I knew about Wonder Woman. I didn't even see the Justice League cartoons or anything like that. So going into this film, or even I guess with Batman v Superman, that was my first proper introduction to the Wonder Woman character. I was going in mostly cold. And I guess I need to address the elephant in the room with a certain reaction video I made on a certain trailer for Wonder Woman, in which I didn't even say bad things about it. I said that I disliked, I thought that Man of Steel was a massive waste of potential. I hated Batman v Superman. Both cuts, the extended cut is a better version of that movie. But when 2.5 hours of the movie is already bad, like an extra half hour isn't going to save the movie at all. Although I do agree with you, Tate, that I did think Wonder Woman was the best element of Batman v Superman. Suicide Squad, I don't think I hated as much as other people. It's a complete mess of a movie, but that was when it, in the editing process, that wasn't the original style of the movie they were going to make. They clearly looked at Guardians of the Galaxy and tried to engineer it in a way where it mirrored that style, and I don't think that worked for it. But it looked like they were starting to introduce a little bit more personality into it. They were trying to have a little bit more fun with these characters. So, but what I saw from the trailers of Wonder Woman, I thought it looked great. I loved the visual style of it. It looked in keeping with the rest of the franchise. But it looked fun, it looked entertaining, and it looked like it was having fun with its character rather than turning Wonder Woman into like a dour, depressive, solitary character like they've done with pretty much every other character in the DCU so far.
Yeah, I'd have to say a problem with that is that you can have a dark version of Batman, because Batman's seen shit and he's done shit. Superman, because he basically has the weight of the world on his shoulders the whole time. Entire character premise, as far as I'm aware, is always based on hope.
Yeah.
Have her being a downer. Like, no matter what cinematic universe you put her in, if her main thing is, we always have hope. And, like, from Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, what I got from the very little kind of things which I've seen from it, kind of when Batman and Superman kind of stand maybe a little bit too close to an issue, or they're unsure on how to deal with the situation, Wonder Woman is always the person who comes in and just kind of knows exactly what to do and just deals with it, and is the one who kind of is strong-minded enough to do that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see a character like that, and we saw flickers of it in the short time that she was in the film in Batman vs Superman. So finally seeing her have an entire film where, I'm going to say spoiler, but it really isn't, where she actually does that throughout the entire film, it's really good, it's really fresh, and I'm happy because of it.
But the thing is, she's not even like a completely clean-cut superhero in this. Like, she does have moments where she is pushed to, you know, like a mental extreme, and she does have to fight against loads of opposing forces. So you do still have that integral part of the character, but there's just such a nice overriding theme of hope throughout this film. And a DC film made me feel happy and elated. Like if we're going into overall opinions now, I absolutely love this movie. I don't know quite how I'd put it if it would be in my list of, say, favorite superhero films of all time. I will go so far as to say it's the best DC film after The Dark Knight. I love this movie, and I don't want this to take away from the Wonder Woman character at all. But I was saying this to you, Tate, before we hit record, that this was a better Superman movie than Man of Steel was. Like, the qualities, all these qualities for the Wonder Woman character should have been present in a Superman film, and it was an absolute joy watching this film. It's leaps and bounds above most Marvel movies I've seen. I don't want to bring like the whole Marvel versus DC thing up because I appreciate both for what they are, but yeah, I had just a great time at the movies with this one. Absolutely loved it. Itzmoe? I feel like we've been talking a bit too much. Sorry.
Sorry. So now, overall opinions, right?
Yeah, just overall opinions, general opinions.
Yeah, I saw it for my third time last night. I still went to the premiere, so yeah, I saw it again. Still cried, still laughed. I still enjoyed it. I feel like every time I see it, I like pay attention to different things. I just like notice different things. So I feel like I'm gonna go see it again. But yeah, I just loved it. I loved all the little kind of nods to Superman. To Richard Donner's Superman. I really love that. And I just fall in love with her every time, with her, you know, her innocence, you know, and just like the little moments. I can't say the moments, but you know, she's discovering the world. She's just so adorable. And I went with a friend who had never seen it yesterday, and he's not really into like superheroes or anything. And so I was like, be honest, you know, what do you think? And he liked it. And he also said the same thing too. You know, how she's kind of at the same time, she's like kind of very innocent, but she can also kick your butt, you know? So, you know, I thought Gal did a really great job. And Chris Pine, I'm not really a Chris Pine person. Like, I don't hate Chris Pine. I'm just indifferent, you know? Usually I'm like, if Chris Pine's in a movie, I'm not going to be like, I'm going to go see it because of Chris Pine. I'm indifferent. But then I loved him in this movie, and I loved his character because, you know, I've known about the character, but I was never really like, Steve Trevor's awesome, but after watching this movie, I'm like, Steve Trevor's awesome, and I just liked how it was kind of a combination of different movies in one. It was kind of, you know, fish out of water, period film, war film, love story, and a superhero movie, like kind of all in one, and yeah.
Tell you, how about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really did. I came out the cinema with a smile on my face. I was watching it alone, which I don't usually do. I usually watch it with a friend or with one of my parents. But like the atmosphere just from the cinema goers, I didn't hear a single person walking out of the cinema say a negative comment. Everyone was kind of smiling. Everyone was happy. The cinema was packed, by the way, and like I don't know, it was an opening day, and people were still coming in. And my friend went to go see it 2 days ago, and he said completely packed. So, like, yeah, it's still bringing the numbers, and I really enjoyed it. Just everything about it. A few tiny nitpicking things, but when you've got a film which is entertaining and you can say that you enjoyed it, the small, tiny nitpicking things are just nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, no, I'm.
So, do you want me to move on to the IMDb?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay, so trusty IMDb. It's a bit longer than the what was it, Pirates of the Caribbean one, which was one sentence. Crazy. Before she was Wonder Woman, she was Diana, Princess of the Amazons, trained warrior. When a pilot crashes and tells of conflict in the outside world, she leaves home to fight a war to end all wars, discovering her full powers and true destiny.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I like that they did make it a period film because, I mean, again, limited knowledge of the history of Wonder Woman, but I think that in the comics, it's World War II is the conflict she's involved with, whereas in this, they changed it to World War I. Don't have a problem with that at all because they did take all the key elements of her character, of her story. And I mean, very much, I'm not going into spoilers, but there is an opening scene of this film and an ending scene that kind of bookends the film, which I'm just going to say it because it's like the first minute or so. It's set in present day. I think if you took those scenes out of there, well, it mostly is a standalone film anyway, but I think if you had have removed those scenes, this is completely standalone. Yeah, and I like that about it too. And I mean, just critically as well, I just having a quick look at Rotten Tomatoes, which, you know, take that for what it's worth. It's all subjective, but it's currently on 93%, which is amazing. And I'm just glad that it, you know, has gone over so well with audiences and critics alike. It's a great achievement for this film.
Give me a second. I'm just trying to find something out. Because I'd be very interested to see this. Okay, that is rated only just lower. That would come second if it was up against all of the Marvel films that have been released.
Mm-hmm.
With a 93 rating. Number 1's 94, the original Iron Man. Number 2 is 92, Marvel's Avengers. So it slots in there.
Yeah.
Which is, it's competing.
And I mean, you know, I've always wanted this to happen. Like, as negative as I have been on the previous DC movies, I don't want to see this universe crash and burn. Like, these are characters that I care about. This is, I mean, if I'm looking at purely from the comic books, I much more gravitate towards DC's characters. I think when the stories, I think they're much more psychologically rich, and there's a lot more at stake for the characters in DC. And it's nice now that they've had one great movie. Whether Justice League is going to be like that, I don't know. Maybe Zack Snyder's the problem. And we're going to see that with Justice League, but I know that he's left now for personal reasons. I'm not going to go into that. But, I mean, yeah, I'm just glad that Wonder Woman's got a great movie. So I guess we can move more into the characters now. So, Itzmoe, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. What did you think to her in this movie? I think I know what you're going to say, but go for it.
Well, first of all, I mean, yeah, I thought she was great. But, yeah, like I just said before, like the first time we saw her in BVS, I also thought she was probably like the best part of the movie. And she, you know, I was a little worried before because, yeah, she hadn't had like that much, I think, acting experience. And I was hopeful but worried that, like, you know, she might not be able to carry a whole film, but she proved me wrong. She was great. Not just like with the action scenes. I thought, yeah, they were awesome. I loved, oh gosh, I can't really say spoilers. I was really, really impressed by her towards the end, towards certain moments that I thought she did a really good job. And then, like I said, I thought she played like kind of like the innocent, naive aspect of Diana very well. And then her chemistry with Chris Pine was great. You know, I thought she played all the comedy, like the funny bits well. And yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Wonder Woman in Batman v Superman, but I remember when she was initially cast, and I don't think this is just me. I think a lot of people were like this when Gal Gadot was initially cast. People were like,
"Who is Gal Gadot?
The model? Like, who is she? Like, what's she done? She's done a couple of appearances in a few Fast and Furious movies. Like, you're going to cast her as one of the Holy Trinity of DC?" And she was fantastic in this movie. And as you said, like all the different qualities she brought to the character in this film, whether it was comedy, whether it's the heartfelt moments, the love story, the action scenes, she just nailed it all. And not just that, but her chemistry with Chris Pine was amazing. And you talked about Richard Donner as well, and I do want to go into that more later on. This almost reminded me of like Christopher Reeve's and, you know, Lois Lane's relationship in the original 2 Superman films. It did almost have that quality to me. I like Chris Pine. Again, he's not like a huge box office draw for me, like if his name's on there, but I thought he's great as Captain Kirk in the recent Star Trek movies. I loved Hell or High Water from last year. That was one of my favorite films from last year. And you don't know how hard I keep going to say Steve Rogers, but I know that that's Captain America. It's so did Steve Trevor. I need to just keep repeating that to myself. But I liked his character as well. He's a very selfless character, and the comedy works between them. They've got a natural chemistry and natural banter, and they're just really endearing together all the way through the movie. And for a film where you've got like 2 of the major protagonists and you like both of them equally, you can't ask for more than that in a movie, really.
Yeah, like I feel like, I don't know how much time they spent together on set or how much time they spent off set, but you could tell that these guys were friends off screen. Like every single scene looked like they were having fun whilst doing it, even if it was a serious scene. You could just tell by kind of just towards each other, just like that, like the way kind of they looked at each other in some of the comedic scenes. You could tell that they really wanted to laugh so hard. And I don't know, just the way the characters develop throughout the entire film. I don't want to keep saying this, but it feels fresh, and yet we've seen it before, which is weird for a film.
Well,
Maybe
I mean,
it's
like
just
the
because
whole
you don't
fish out
expect
of water thing has been done in so many movies in the past, and it can be done in a very
It feels
cliched
different.
and just really cringy way. But it was just, you know,
It feels different in this film. Gal Gadot's acting is brilliant. Perfectly captures the kind of wide-eyed, naive kind of, but also heroic character that you would expect from like a superhero. And I'm not going to say Steve Rogers. I almost said it just then. Steve Trevor. He was just a character who you just wanted to see more of. Like every single scene. I know, I don't want to say he stole it because he really didn't. But you always paid attention to everything that he said, every line he said, no matter where he was on screen, whenever he was kind of in a scene. So yeah, I think just overall, the acting was solid between the two main characters.
And without going into spoilers at all, I did want to talk about the actual love story between these two characters. Now, Itzmoe, I watched your review that you posted, and there'll be a link to that in the description. You talked about how the whole love angle could not take the focus away from the Wonder Woman character, but like maybe cheapen her character somewhat. But and especially in elements involved with the ending, the love story really kicks in. Did you see that as a negative thing towards the film at all, or did you just kind of? You talked about that they're together for like maybe 2 or 3 days and they fall in love. Did you think that that was kind of a bit cliched, or did you completely buy it when you watched the movie?
No, I bought it. Like because I was thinking about that yesterday when I was watching it, and I still bought it. And I was actually paying more attention to how many days, and I think it's more like 4 or 5. So it's a little bit more into 3. But I still bought it because I don't know. I love their relationship. I don't think it made like took anything away from her character or anything. I mean, I feel like it's kind of understandable. Like she's never just the first guy, and like other reviewers said that, and I agree with them too, that one thing they liked about Steve Trevor was like he wasn't a womanizer. He really respected her, and that's one thing I loved about him too. You could really tell, you know, he respected her, and I just loved how he would support her when she, like I think in No Man's Land when she was she kind of asked if he could help, and he helped, and yeah, I don't want to give spoilers, dang it, but yeah, he was just very supportive of her. And there was like and then there's another line, can't say, but she kind of gives him credit for what they did. It wasn't just, she wasn't like, yeah, it was all me, you know, blah blah blah. So it was just a kind of a mutual respect. So I thought the relationship was beautiful. So
same. I think why I bought this relationship as well was because if I'm going to compare it to another relationship in the DCU so far, the recent like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman between Clark Kent, Superman, and Lois Lane. Even from Man of Steel, that's not a relationship I care about at all. I don't think they have very great chemistry, and I think that the whole relationship of those two characters together was based on the fact that I think he's hot, I think she's hot, and they're kind of together just because of that. Whereas this, there is that physical attraction to each other, but they go through similar traumatic experiences, and they share those experiences together. And because of that, they grow as characters. And I agree with people. If people think it's cliched at the end with the love thing, and I don't think this film needed that at the end with like the whole love angle, but I'm fine with how it played out because I liked the two actors together. And I think they elevated that and made you believe into that love story more than it would in any other movie, for example.
Yeah. I want to say that they probably spent more time that we didn't see in the film, because obviously it wouldn't take them like, I don't know, 1 day to get to the front line. It would have taken them maybe 1 to 2, maybe 3 days, because I believe they go to sorry, the film is set in 3 different parts. I want to say first it's set on Paradise Island to start off with, it's then set in London, and then it's set in the front line. And I'd say that there was more interactions between Chris Pine's character and Gal Gadot's character in London and the front lines, and the distance between those two was probably maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 days. So I reckon they spent more than like the 3-4 days that we actually saw in the film together. They probably spent a week, maybe 2, before they took down the operation. So slightly more believable in that aspect. But yeah, the chemistry was just on point in this film. You can't fault it.
And I guess you brought Paradise Island there, and the film being split into 3 different locations. I think we can talk a bit about the locations now. Again, keeping it spoiler-free. What did you guys think of Paradise Island, how it looked, and the Amazons and everything like that? Seeing that on the big screen, what did you guys think?
Looks cool. Can I live there?
It was beautiful, obviously. I loved the way the Amazons looked, like physically. I shared an article I don't know if you saw it on Facebook about how they got like actual like athletes, like CrossFit athletes and all these other types of athletes. So I really like that it wasn't like typical like, you know, Hollywood, like, oh, let's get skinny. Like, they actually try to make them look like Amazon. So I really, really appreciated that. And I like the costumes. A detail, like, I noticed is I would look at all the tiaras, and I liked how they were all different. So I thought that was really cool, just like a little detail like that. And oh my gosh, okay, well, the little girl that plays young Diana, she's so adorable. That's all. She's so freaking cute. Like, she's so cute.
Oh, I've got a name. I don't know where I recognize the name from. Maybe like she went on a talk show or something like that. But Lily Aspel playing young Diana, and yeah, as far as like kid portrayed characters go, I'm not a fan of kid actors. I'm really not. There are more bad kid actors than there are good kid actors, and sometimes they can be terrible and spoil parts of the film. I'm looking at you, Oblivion, ending with the worst line in cinema history. And sometimes they can be better. For example, Tremblay in The Room. So you can get a good balance, but like it wasn't bad. It wasn't stupendously good, but she did play the wide-eyed kind of, I want to go and be adventurous within the world. I want to learn. I want to follow in the footsteps of all the other people on the island and stuff like that kind of thing, without maybe knowing that she was a bit more than just a normal child. Like, she wasn't like, she was obviously the only child on the island, and she couldn't have known that maybe she could be more than just a normal Amazon. So it was quite nice to see kind of that acted and played out.
Yeah, and similar to Thor, for example, with me with this film, I love like the whole mythological history kind of stuff. And in all honesty, if they'd have done a whole film set on Paradise Island, I'd have been fine like that, because I like seeing this culture, I like seeing their way of life, the weapons, the actions, everything that went along with it. I was absolutely captivated by that setting, and I would love to have seen more of it. I realise that this movie is already 2 hours 20 minutes, and we can't spend ages there. And I think the movie does move at a fantastic pace, so I get why they didn't, but that's just like the spoiled me wants to see more of that. And just in terms of how this movie is structured as well, I think it's really important that we start off seeing young Diana, so we can see that wide-eyed quality to her. You can already see that warrior spark in her from a very young age, and we get to see her train up, and we get to progress and evolve with the character as she does. And if I'm going to compare it to Man of Steel, I'm so glad, for example, that this film didn't tell its story in a completely non-linear style. I know you get the present day thing at the start, but that's just kind of an introduction following Batman v Superman. But this film would have been a complete mess had we have, you know, been with her in the front lines, and then it flashes back to a little bit on Themyscira, and then it's moving all around. And my problem with Man of Steel was, and I'm not going to turn this into a Man of Steel review, guys, but when we start that film, we're kind of all over the place with what's going on, and we're introduced to Clark as an adult, and we haven't experienced everything he has up until that point, so we don't know how we're meant to feel about his character, and then you kind of get offhanded flashbacks, which didn't really serve the character at all. This was told in the most perfect way, so that you follow her from beginning to end with her character as she becomes Wonder Woman, as she becomes the warrior that we all know. So I thought that was really smart how they did that. And I even loved London as well, the whole elements in London, although a lot of important plot elements happen there. I'd say that's the most comedic part of the story. That's the whole fish out of water story. And Itzmoe, as you mentioned earlier, the whole Richard Donner thing, the scene where with the bullet grab, that was completely like Superman the movie, and I love to see that. They had like the nice little twist on it as well. Yeah, I loved all that stuff. And, you know, the bit where she just, I can't talk about unique bits to the film. But when she's like walking past people and she's talking about the way they dress or babies, for example, and she's kind of all over the place, I loved all that stuff. And then the front line as well, and I can spoil this bit because it's in the trailer anyway, but the scene where she does go over the top in No Man's Land, and you just get the full-on like hero shot of Wonder Woman, that was genuinely awe-inspiring stuff. And it's very rare now, because we've had so many superhero films now, it's very difficult for one to really grab your attention and say, this is a very important character, this is a special moment to this character. And in that moment where she does show a heroism and goes over the top in full awesome Wonder Woman armor, it was incredible to see. And the music as well. We'll get onto the soundtrack later, but my God.
Should we talk about the themes then, guys?
Yeah, sure.
General themes that we have during the film. So we've actually got a list here that me and Chris kind of storyboarded beforehand. I'm just going to list them off and then we can talk about them through. Selflessness, fighting for the people, the consequences of war, and extending onto that, what it does to humanity, human nature, and fish out of water.
Yeah, and I mean, like that element of hope, for example, again, I'm going back to Superman, but even Batman v Superman, that element of hope is throughout the film, but you never really feel it. It's done in a very kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just very negative light of humanity and a very dour and somber way, and it feels very mean-spirited. This, you feel elated throughout the film. You do want to see her succeed. And again, I can't go into it, but there's a moment where she is walking through No Man's Land, and you do see that selfless quality to her, where she is wanting to try and help every single person she passes. And Steve Trevor's like, you can't do that because there's too many. You need to focus on the main problem at hand. And I like seeing her step up. There's moments where she is arguing against higher ups and things like that. I like to see that character. She is through and through a good character. She's a good person. And she stands up for what she doesn't believe in. She stands up for what she does believe in. All these elements come together. And that's why I said, again, not taken away from the Wonder Woman character, this was a much better Superman film than even Man of Steel was. Yeah.
I agree.
Anyone?
I want to actually talk about something which, like, I think it was George who said it beforehand. He'll probably say it when we go into the spoiler review. But one of his problems possibly going into the film was he said he'd be really angry if they got World War I wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they do a really good job with kind of displaying it. I know that this is now, what did we find out earlier? That this was the highest opening or the highest box office World War I film of all time already, beating out War Horse and Lawrence of Arabia. So as far as the World War I elements which are inside the film, it felt like you were there, which is strange for a superhero film to do that. I know we're doing nothing but praise at the moment, but this film is good. Like, you can't avoid that. But yeah, the consequences of war and what it does to humanity as well is also seen in there. We do have a few characters who, because of the war, are influenced completely. Like some of the main characters, some of the characters we see in the background, you see the horrors of war and what it does to people, but you also see Wonder Woman kind of come out of that and bring hope to these people, give them something to believe in, and it changes some of the characters and how they act in the film, which is good to see as well. Because it would have felt really tacky if they just had random characters have different character traits and then Wonder Woman correct them, but not have a cause for correcting them. This film kind of adjusted to that very well.
Yeah, and I mean, the movie's, I guess in America it's PG-13, for us in the UK a 12A, so they can't go really graphic and overboard with the World War I stuff, but you get all the necessary elements that you need that do depict the World War. You do see the casualties of it, you do see the mental and physical effects it does have on people as well. Yeah, and it all feeds into the character, which is at the forefront of this movie, which was absolutely the right choice. I mean, they could have very easily done like the World War I thing as an action set piece and just had it for spectacle, but there was a lot more to it than just the action and spectacle, which I guess can bring us on to the action itself now. So, Itzmoe, what did you think of all the scenes where Wonder Woman kicked ass in this movie?
It was freaking awesome to see. I loved it, and I thought they played the theme in like a pretty good. I don't feel like they overused it, which is good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw some reviews where people did have a problem with the slow motion. I didn't. So it just depends, you know. For me, it was fine because I don't mind seeing like how she moves, like especially because she's, you know, this powerful being. Like I don't mind it slowing down a little bit so I can see better. And I thought Gal did a great job, and I thought the fight scenes, like I was just amazed by the choreography and stuff. Like how long did it take to get that right, especially in the no man's land scene. And then I like seeing her get thrown around too, not because like I like seeing people get hurt or anything, but you know, it kind of showed like, okay, she's struggling, you know. I don't want like her to just go and just win and like no struggle or anything. So I liked I guess more towards the end kind of just get, you know, thrown around and stuff like that, and you know, she still, you know, got up and kept fighting and everything, and yeah, I loved it. It was awesome.
One thing to keep to know, just something about the No Man's Land scene. I was reading in the in my latest issue of Empire magazine, and they said that it was absolutely freezing. They had a massive chilly wind coming across when they were filming, and she was wearing not much. She's just wearing a kind of Wonder Woman costume at the time. And when they were on set, they had her taking off the fur coat and walking up the steps onto the front line. And they were saying that between scenes, like as soon as she would walk out, she would have to kind of tense her muscles before they said cut. As soon as they said cut, she would immediately sprint back down and immediately be put in like a large puffer jacket because it was so cold and the wind was coming across so bad. So yeah,
she really is Wonder Woman.
I wonder if that would have like influenced the performance though in that scene, maybe kind of like the environment that it would be like.
She would have probably wanted to do it first time perfect and wanted to just kind of be the perfect shot first time because of that. But I think it did take a few takes for them to get it right. I think one of the times they said that she was stood there for about 5 seconds with the hair coming across her face, like across like this. Maybe we'll see that in one of the bloopers when the DVD comes out, but they just had the hair coming across her face and they said, "Cut, get back inside." She was like, "Yeah." But yeah, the action scenes itself were amazing. You saw different kind of styles of action scene. In the first location in Paradise Island, you've got her definitely in her own element, training with the Amazons, fighting alongside the Amazons with their own fighting styles in there. And seeing everyone fight with this amazing fluid action of style. One thing which I guess I can say, I'm quite a fan of, I believe his name is Lars Anderson, the archer. And he's one of the best archers in the world. Like he's able to fire 3 arrows and landing on the ground, which is ridiculous. But one thing that they included, which I really, really liked, really kind of small detail, was the way they hold the arrows. Don't have them in a quiver. They're holding them in the hand because it's easier to draw back and fire, and it's quicker to do that. And it's easier to move without a quiver, which is really cool to see. Because usually you see like films like Robin Hood with bow and arrows, and he's always got a quiver and stuff like that. That would never be the way that they would actually do it unless you're in the back line standing still and firing. Cool seeing that. All of the action scenes kept you on the edge of your seat at all times. They kept you glued to the screen. In the different areas, London was more of, I'd say, a comedic or more of a kind of action scenes in that area. On the front line, it was more brutal. It was the hero shots. And in Paradise Island, obviously, it was the kind of Amazons and their fighting styles. So overall, really impressed by it. Really good.
And Robin Wright.
Yeah. Can we see more of this in other DC films, please? In fact, can we see more of this in all comic book films? Just put it across the blank slate, because I believe last year I declared comic book films were dead. I've been proven so badly wrong.
Yeah, no, for me,
more of this.
Sorry, yeah, for the action scenes for me, one of my favorite films of all time is The Matrix, so I understand the placement of slow-mo, and I realize that movies such as The Matrix have a lot of it. I did think, however, there were some action scenes in this where I did think it got a little bit too extraneous. I would have liked them to have dialed it back a bit. There were some movements in this film that I would have liked to have seen done in a fast way. I think you would have had more impact behind it and more, awe-inspired. I'm fine with a little bit of slow-mo, but it felt like it was almost like studio notes from Zack Snyder himself saying, like, pass the page over, like, yeah, make the action scenes like this, make them like 300. For example, the action scene on the beach scene at Themyscira, that was like straight up 300 for me. It was almost like a one shot as you see them chaining kills together. Very much reminded me of 300. And, I guess if you've gone with that fighting style for Wonder Woman, and indeed kind of the fighting style for every character in the previous DC films right before this, you've got to kind of stick with it. You have to stick with that style moving forward. Not giving anything away, the final action scene, I'm very torn on it, because on the one hand, that was where I was getting Batman v Superman style flashbacks with the likes of fighting Doomsday. Just in terms of how it looked and how it was staged, it felt very similar to that. But on the other hand, this is a superhero action movie, and if it didn't have like a big end boss fight with the villain, then I'd be angry myself. So I understand its placement, but when you compare the ending fight scene to the rest of the movie, it does feel like, okay, we're back to where we were now with like the end of Man of Steel, the end of Batman v Superman. This is me like nitpicking though, because I mean, that's not like a problem to me. If I am going to try and find a negative, that would be the only one I could find. But tying in with the action itself, the soundtrack. So I believe Rupert Gregson-Williams did the soundtrack. He used a lot of the themes that Junkie XL and Hans Zimmer made for Batman v Superman. And I will say this for DC over the Marvel films, it's nice to have recurring themes and nice to see these themes come back for all the themes. For example, Batman v Superman used the Superman piano theme that Hans Zimmer made. And it's nice to see them carry over the Wonder Woman theme into this one, because with the Marvel films, they kind of get a new composer for every movie. So you never get the sense of where you'll hear a theme and you'll go, oh, that's the Star-Lord theme, that's the Guardians of the Galaxy theme, or anything like that. With this one, when you hear that electric cello theme now for Wonder Woman, you immediately know it's Wonder Woman. And every time it plays in this movie, and you're right, Itzmoe, it doesn't overstay its welcome in this film. It's used very sparingly at all the right moments. It's like an absolute shot of adrenaline into this film every time it kicks in. And I love it. And I've been playing it like constantly after I've seen this movie.
Yeah. This, I believe, Chris, you showed me one video once talking about the music in Marvel, and every time music in comic book hero films comes out, I always go back to that video. I can't remember what the actual video was, but I always go back to that same video about Marvel not having recognizable music. And yet DC always seems to have recognizable music, because I love the music in Man of Steel. In Batman vs Superman, we heard the Wonder Woman theme for the first time, and I was just like, oh my god. Yes. Suicide Squad had some music, which I would go back and like listen to. But it's a recognizable theme. Like, I'm pretty sure at one point in one of our conversations, Chris, like we've actually kind of hummed the theme, or we've just kind of shouted it, or we've headbanged to it, or something like that. Like, it's brilliant, and like people will be playing it in like film playlists and stuff like that, because it's an epic kind of score to go with like the epic character that it's portraying. So yeah,
and they even do like slower versions of it as well. Like they take the theme and they interweave it into the actual score itself, which was nice to hear. I mean, I know Rupert, his brother, did the soundtrack for this, but you can. I don't know if Hans Zimmer was like a producer on the score or anything like that, because I think he kind of washed his hands of superhero films now, didn't he? Batman v Superman kind of scared him away from ever scoring another superhero film, I think. But you can see his kind of like handprint all over it, and maybe pass some notes. And I do like how they do continue the themes. Itzmoe, final thoughts on the soundtrack, and then we'll kind of move on to rounding off on this review.
I thought it was great. I paid attention to it a little bit more in my third viewing. That's why I like going to multiple, because you pay attention to different things. Because I didn't really like pay too much attention to it the first two times, but this time I really listened to it. And I liked how they kind of, like you said, they kind of changed it a little bit. Like the theme, they kind of made it it didn't sound exactly like the version from the BVS soundtrack. So,
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm definitely gonna buy the soundtrack so I can just listen to it a little bit more. And I think Hans Zimmer too is probably the only one that's he's composed like the themes for all three of them, the Trinity, because he did the Nolan films.
Mm-hmm.
So he did Batman theme there. He did Superman, and then Batman again in BVS, and now he did Wonder Woman. So he's the only one that's done the themes for all the Trinity. So as a nerd, comic book nerd, I think it's cool. And I remember the first time I heard the theme, like it was because I was so looking forward to BVS. So they put out little like 1-minute clips of the soundtrack, and I heard that just the just like 1 minute of that, and I was like, my mouth was just like, that's her theme. Like that's freaking amazing. I'm like, I need to hear this whole thing. And then as soon as, like, I think a week before the movie, they put out the entire soundtrack on the YouTube page, and I listened to it over and over. This is amazing. And then going from being excited there, then seeing it on the big screen with, you know, the actual visuals, just my mind was like, oh my God, this is what I've always wanted for Wonder Woman. So I loved it. Yeah.
I'll say it's a very far cry from the Linda Carter TV theme, which is a theme I love, by the way. It doesn't feature in this movie. I was really upset. I was hoping they credits. They don't. There are no in her satin tights. I
was just like, what? You played the theme to me before, and I was just like, what is this? And he was like, Wonder Woman. I was like, oh, okay. It's the old Wonder Woman theme. And then you played the other theme afterwards. I was like, Jesus, that's so different.
It's quite a stretch, yeah. Hey, you were dancing to the Linda Carter theme. We both were. This is the stuff that goes behind the scenes on Cinema Sapphire, by the way, folks. I think we've pretty much covered it. So just roundtable discussion. Overall opinions on Wonder Woman. Itzmoe.
Okay. Well, I think the characters are great. I really love the humor. I feel like this is a film that people who aren't superhero fans can enjoy. So I really like that. And it's not just for women, and all ages, men and women. That's one thing I really like about this film, because I feel like it's kind of hard sometimes for superhero films to achieve that, appeal to people who aren't comic book fans. So I really like that. And Gal Gadot is awesome. The action scenes are great. It's so great, especially on the mascara and that fight scene, just seeing all these strong women kick butt. It's awesome. And I love the relationship between Steve and Gal. It's beautiful. And Patty, you're awesome. You're queen. Oh, thank you. Thank you for making this amazing film, and everyone else involved too. So yeah, go watch it. Support it.
Tape.
I think something that helps this film is the fact that you can advertise it as a comic book film. You can advertise it as a war film. You can advertise it as a romance film. You can advertise it as an action film. You can really advertise this as a comedy in some areas as well. Kind of ticks across the board as far as genres. So like people will go in not knowing whether they like certain elements, but they'll end up liking all of it. This deserves the Rotten Tomatoes score it's been given. It really does, and I seriously enjoyed it. It's got me more excited for Justice League, but there is a huge but there. Justice League can still be a horrible train wreck. Maybe, just maybe, it's the character of Wonder Woman who's the only good thing in the DCEU. Maybe.
God, that's a depressive. I mean, I love Wonder Woman, but that's a depressive thought.
It's a foreshadowing thought. I really hope not. I really do hope not, because I really enjoyed this film. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing more of these characters.
And one more thing. Patty Jenkins. I think she already signed up for a Wonder Woman sequel. So, please let her also direct a Man of Steel sequel.
Well,
please,
funnily enough,
yes.
When I went on to IMDb and I clicked on Gal Gadot, two things came up which caught my eye. One, the next film that she's in is going to be Justice League. Two is that they've also put up on there, without a date announced, there's going to be Justice League Part 2, and that's the actual name they've given it here. Which caught my eye,
Yeah, it was originally going to
Um,
be a two-parter. I mean,
Very
this was going to be called Part 1, but then I think they changed their mind, and I think Part 2 is literally just going to be a Justice League 2.
Yeah, they're just two different movies. It's kind of like the Avengers, how there's like two Avengers.
Mhm.
So it's not like the
Mm.
same story split in two. It's it's basically like a second Justice League
Yeah.
movie.
I'll need to have a look at the lineup of DC EU films, because I know that they've got a Cyborg film announced, a Flash film announced, The Batman.
Aquaman.
Who's directing that now?
Then they
Yeah,
announced
Batfleck,
Batgirl,
or whatever they're gonna call it.
Nightwing, Gotham City Sirens. They've announced a lot
Yeah, I
more.
heard about it, yeah.
And I mean, Whedon as well. Whedon's coming on to kind of finish off Justice League for, you know, the personal reasons of why Snyder's had to leave the project. And he is doing the Batgirl film as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Warner Brothers do kind of bring on Whedon to kind of helm the entire DCU now. I think it will definitely be a very big style change, because if anyone's seen any of Whedon's stuff before, it's completely different from any of the other directors we've seen take on any of these projects before. But I'm hopeful. At this, like Wonder Woman instills hope in the people, she's instilled hope into me that hopefully the DC franchise can find its feet after this movie. And, you know, because I want it to. These are characters I care about. These are characters I like, and I want to see them succeed. For me, final opinions on Wonder Woman. In a world that we live in now, with how many superhero films we get a year, it's an immensely competitive world between Marvel and DC and Fox, etc. I think that this film, Wonder Woman, is an incredibly important film out of all the superhero films we've had. It being, I won't say it's the first female-led superhero film, because if you look before, we've had Supergirl, we've had Catwoman, we've had Elektra. None of those are good movies, by the way. So I guess we can say that this is the first good female-led superhero film. But with the success of this now, it's going to be interesting to see what Marvel have to pull out the bag for Miss Marvel. I do think that, again, not to bring the rivalry up, but, you know, there is serious competition now for this movie. I loved it. There was a few negative points I had, maybe with the villain, maybe with some of the slow-mo. Those are nitpicks, guys. The Gal Gadot's fantastic. I was going to say Steve Trevor. Chris Pine's amazing. Their chemistry is completely believable. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's action-packed. It's everything you want from a superhero film, and more. I came out of this film absolutely overjoyed. I got back. I changed my cover art on Facebook to Wonder Woman. She's now one of my favorite superheroes. Had an amazing time at the movie theaters with this one. So that'll do it for our review on Wonder Woman. Be sure to comment, subscribe. Let us know what you thought of this movie. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? How would you rate it in terms of the other DC films that have come before it? Anything you like, please do drop us a comment. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, like in 2 hours' time, me and Tate will be going live again for an in-depth spoiler review on Wonder Woman. That will be with George. There'll be more movie reviews coming up in the upcoming weeks. There'll be more trailer reactions from me. Loads of new shows on the channel as well, so be sure to hit the subscribe button. Also hit the bell icon at the side, so you get a notification every time we upload something new. Before we round off, Itzmoe, do you want to kind of talk a bit about your channels and where people can find you on the social medias?
Yeah, sure. Twitter, ITZMOE, Itzmoe, and that's also the name of my main channel, and that's where I do a lot of the nerdy stuff, comic book stuff. I've been doing a lot of Wonder Woman stuff just because there's a lot that has been going on for Wonder Woman, but I also just do other, vlogs if I go to some cool event or, conventions. I have some comedy skits that I've written, but I need somewhere to film them, so hopefully that will happen soon. So that channel is basically anything I want to talk about. It's on the Itzmoe channel, and then if you love 90s nostalgia, I have a whole channel for that. It's called 90s Kids Forever, so just search for that. It should be like the first channel that pops up. And then Instagram, I'm at More Than You Think 7. So there you go. It's kind of long, but yeah.
And we'll have links to all those in the description. Once again, thank you for jumping on with us today. I'm glad that you were able to bring your passion for the Wonder Woman character to our review today. It's been great to have you back on the channel. We'll have to do this again sometime, whichever nostalgic review we have in the future. So that'll do it from all of us, guys. And until the next time, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for having me.
It's like